as the Western wisdom religion. The hierophants of the mysteries of Atlantis were determined that the misuse of the divine wisdom and its secrets by mankind would never again be allowed for the fear that he may destroy the planet. So they decreed that only those of the highest moral and spiritual development would be permitted to learn the mysteries of God. From this, it was not to be construed that the gods were selfish and wanted to keep this wisdom for themselves. Far from it, but it was considered that only when an individual had reached a certain stage of his inward spiritual development could he be entrusted with this knowledge of the secrets of God without destroying himself and others. This was the plan which was to be the basis of all mystery schools. The schools were to be opened for all people. That is, if they were able to fulfill the qualifications for the reception of the mysteries. Just as the candidate for the university has to satisfy the board of examiners of their fitness to enter by sitting for a preliminary examination, the candidates for the mysteries were examined carefully before being allowed to enter. This same plan is in force for the mystery schools of the present day, even as it was in the past. The first of the sub-races entered India from over the Himalayas. Their culture and wisdom was focused in perception and was deeply metaphysical. This was in accord with the type of mind to be developed. The next sub-race moved across the desert to Egypt, where they built up a culture and civilization upon action. There they dramatized the wisdom religion with their temples and sacred colleges, and only those who were fit could participate in these mysteries concerning the descent and ascent of the soul into matter. I'm just getting adjusted really quick. Excuse me. All right. Much of the fundamentals of the Indian wisdom was blended with the Egyptian. The third sub-race settled in Chaldea, and their wisdom was based in the emotional region, where they again dramatized the evolution and decay of the worlds, and the knowledge of the fire being the purest of all elements. The fire referred to in their philosophy was the soul of man. Here again, we find traces of the Indian and Egyptian wisdom in the wisdom of the Magi. And it was here that the Jews took most of their wisdom and then made it into a history of the Jews. So now we see where a distortion of the Judaic tradition comes into play, where they literalized and historicized the sacred mysteries into this ethnic identity. Yep, Prometheus and fire. Yep, exactly. And then the whole mysteries of the esoteric symbolism of the Garden of Eden and the serpent giving them, the bring of knowledge of light. So now, the fourth migration from the Gobi settled around the Mediterranean, and their culture and approach to the wisdom was based upon the analytical mind. They built great colleges and established their own particular form of mysteries within their systems of the wisdom. The fundamentals of the first three types or presentations of the wisdom is to be found. They brought forth such great men as Plato and Pythagoras and established the famous mysteries of Ulysses, or Eleusis and Agar in Greece and Samothrace in Asia Minor. The great Roman Empire, where they blended all the religions and worshipped all of the gods, was of this type. Now here's a deep, profound one where we're going to get into some Christianity. So up into this date, the mysteries or the gnosis was confined to the mystery schools and colleges, but when the Christ came to Palestine, he founded a religion which would appeal to the social mind, which was to be the keynote for the fifth race or sub-race. He founded his own mysteries and called them the mysteries of Christ, or the Christos, of which the Gnostics were the hierophants and guardians. This fact has been amply demonstrated in the Gospels and in the Apostles of St. Paul by the writings of Marcion, Valentinius, Corinthius, Justin Martyr, and Basilides. All of these took and blended the fundamentals of the older mysteries and promulgated them for use in the Western world. This fact has been ignored by the present student for the light. His mysteries were simply a new presentation of the older individualistic forms, restated in terms which could be understood by the coming development of the social mind for Europe and the Americas. The stern requirements and the fulfillment of the qualifications were applicable to the mysteries of Christ, just as they were for the older mystery religions and philosophies. But, and here we come to the great betrayal of the Christ and his mysteries, the Church. That is to say, the Ebionite and Essene Church of Christ was split into two factions. One of them, the Jewish Gnostics, followed the old Jewish tradition and were still bound by the Mosaic law, and thus could not understand the meaning of the good tidings of Christ. On the other hand, the Hellenistic Gnostics knew and understood the real meaning of the Christos and the Krestos, and formed their own mysteries, embodying the old with the new, and it was St. Paul, by his attempts to blend the two aspects together, who laid the foundations for the Christian gnosis of God and of the soul. And of course, always, it is recorded that the Gnostics, either by design or accidentally, allowed a fragment of their rituals to fall into the hands of the Jewish Christians. We feel that it was by design for the very reason that St. Paul's teachings could not have been understood by the profane, and to make sure that the message of Christ or the Christos would be sure to be carried on. This fragment was allowed to fall into the hands of the Catholic party, who immediately thought it was the story of a man who lived and died in historical time. When they were faced with the actual facts of the life of Yeshua ben Pandera, and the knowledge that factual history knew nothing of their Jesus Christ, they sought to gain power, and once attaining this power, they persecuted those who knew the real meaning of the Christ and his message. Thus, the Ebionite and Essene Church faded from factual history, and the Catholic Church came forward about 300 AD. The leaders of the Catholic party, with the armies and authority of Constantine at their back, sought to destroy the Gnostic Church, but we need not go into the facts of the case, as factual history is still extant for the student to read for himself. It was during this time that the spiritual history of the Christos was profaned into that of man in time, and from this time, the true church was forced to go underground. But the official church, with its physical God, waged a continuous campaign of persecution and elimination of the Gnostics and the gnosis of Christ. The Vedas of India were divided into two systems, the work and the knowledge parts, and they give for this subrace one of the finest philosophical and social systems possible, and from this system stem, in many ways, the other systems of spiritual knowledge, which were to manifest in the succeeding subraces. For instance, the system of Kapala, which is Sankhya, tells that when the personality comes under the influence of the spiritual self, its aim is to reach union with the self through the withdrawal from matter. It is the sublimation of desire for the many manifestations of the personality, and shows that by purity of life and obedience to the laws of the Manu, man can attain true spirituality. The Egyptians had a religion in which were many gods, which were the forces behind all the modes of manifested activity. Their worship was comprised of stately rituals, unrivaled in their splendor, by which the gods were approached, and thus were able to pour their efficacious power upon the outer world. Whilst the mass were taught the wisdom by symbolism, the mysteries of Egypt taught the hidden knowledge to those who were ready for its reception. It was here that alchemy had its greatest growth, and within this method, the manifestation of the living powers within man and nature were dramatized. It was here that Hermes came to give the knowledge of the hidden light and taught people to seek this light, and that they were this light in action. It was in the Chaldean race that the knowledge of fire was first given as a symbol of the deity, and the science of religion was the sacred knowledge of the correspondences of the cosmogony and celestial verities, uniting man's evolution with that of the universe of which he is a part, and penetrating the veil of many facts which are still mysteries for the modern world. The fourth subrace had for its system of religions the mysteries, the love of beauty, and their philosophy was based upon the conception of logic, the modus operandi of the lower mind, which dealt with archetypes and the innate ideas. They geometrized the whole of man and his relationship to the universe, and through this method were able to pierce the veil between the lower mind and to the higher mind of man, thus reaching the state of ecstasy or union with the divine. Briefly, the yogi of the Hindu sought this union by the practices of the 7 types of yogi. The Egyptians sought this union by rituals in which they participated in the light, while the Chaldeans sought this same union by means of the knowledge of astrology and its relationship to the human soul, whilst the fourth sought this same union by logic and philosophical knowledge. The nations of this area used the following methods. Pre-Greeks of Homer used the activity phase. The Greeks used the emotions. The Romans used the lower mind. The Italians used the higher mind in its emotional aspect, hence the growth of the Roman Church. The French used the lower mind, hence the period of free thinkers and rationalists, and finally the academists. And the Spanish used the higher mental, and the Irish the intuitional. Through all these nations, the wisdom religion was presented through the emotions blended with their highest mind. They all taught the wisdom religion in the manner best suited to their type of civilization and culture. We now come to the Teutonic or Nordic, whose special religion is Christianity. And this religion has passed through 6 stages. Sensation, as with the Slavonic Croats, and Slavics. Then the activity phase in the Germans, Lets, and Lithuanians. From these people comes the first logical presentation of the Gnosis. The Germans and Austrians blended the chivalric orders and a wisdom caste. They manifested the emotional approach to the wisdom through Christianity. The lower mind phase is shown in the Dutch and Frisians, the love of art and beauty, and finally the higher mind of the Anglo-Saxons, hence the new impulse from about 1875, when the Western peoples through England became saturated with the wisdom in its Eastern form, helped by the writings of Helena Blavatsky. Now we are faced with a multitude of systems, all claiming to be the only system which will give you union with the divine, but manifesting no practical proof for their claims. The mind of the Anglo-Saxons has not yet reached the stage where the intuitional faculty is predominant. This lack has been exploited by the unscrupulous expounders of systems of occult training and knowledge. To entrap the unwary, they have used high-powered publicity methods in the main, seeking to stimulate the lower mind of its devotees instead of developing the higher mind. Today, we are facing a chaotic state of isms, which instead of teaching their people the evolution of the phases of mental development and seeking to blend all the systems together into a practical whole, seek to separate their fragment of truth into the occult set of dogmas. The worst offenders in this separateness are the theosophists. They have become riddled and chained with what could be called dogmatic theosophia or theosophia. And when a new presentation of the wisdom religion is presented to them, they cry, "Oh, this is not theosophy." They have become proud and full of spiritual pride, causing the Theosophical Society to become the dogmatic society of occultism, just as the Church of Rome is the dogmatic Christianity of the wisdom. Ain't that the truth? Hey, JT, what you thinking of this so far? And everyone else, whoever is here listening. Oh, shit. Rastaman. Interesting. I'm going in and out. My God. Bruh, that's crazy. You missing all the good stuff. Welcome to the teachings of the Illuminati, everyone. I'm not even making that up. I vaguely heard of root races, and it's from Blavatsky, or no. So it seems like it's not just like a Blavatsky thing. I think there's something more to it than that. Because beyond theosophy, other orders are still, you could say, perpetuate that concept, that teaching. So I don't know. But I think Blavatsky, with the Blavatsky stream, it kind of, I don't know, it's a complex subject. Please keep reading it. Will do. Israel is you. Israel is internal. It's not something external. It never was. That's when the mysteries got bastardized. In its Judaic concept, at least. Just like they externalized the Christ instead of being the divine spark, the soul, the divine monad within. So now, let's see, where was I? So the work of Helena Blavatsky was to bring to the West the fundamentals of the wisdom in the hope that it would open the eyes of the West to the continuity of the revelation of the wisdom religion. Her work has been frustrated. Instead of her society seeking to enlighten the Christian religion, they cling to the Eastern systems of the wisdom, failing to remember that the Eastern methods are not suited to the Western mind and temperament. The true foundation of the wisdom for the Western mind is to be found within Gnostic Christianity, or the mysteries of Christ, which continued the knowledge of the things that are, and not the shadows. Just as the present-day Rosicrucians adhere to the Jewish Kabbalah instead of the gnosis of Christian Rosenkreutz. Oh yeah, some of them do. Certain Rosicrucians are more Kabbalistic. Others are Gnostic Christianity. So the prevalent conception, which is now sweeping the West, is that to belong either to an Eastern school or to be saturated with Eastern intellectualism is the fashionable thing in occult circles. Oh shit, where'd I go? Uh-oh. Okay, there you are.